Welcome back, everyone, to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 121. I'm here with my co-facilitator, uh, Lionel and Christian.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? How you doing today, Mike? How you doing today, Christian?
I'm good,
Doing
brother.
all
Yourself?
right.
I'm well, thanks for asking.
All right. So tonight's topic is Black IT Talk, mobile OS app development, and African smartphones. I've put the docket in the description beneath the video, so if you want to follow along, I strongly suggest that you do look in the description beneath the video to keep up with us. And we are now joined by Supreme. What's going on, brother?
Hey, how you doing today, Pring?
Hey, hey, hey!
Oh man, what's going on?
It's all good, man. It's all good. Glad to be here.
All right, let me fire this off. So first item on the docket is from DW documentary: drones, robots, mobile payments, Africa's growing digital business. Mobile payments, drone monitoring, harvest, harvest, robots directing traffic. Africa's image is changing. Transactions made by text message, fields monitored by drones, and traffic regulated by robots. Um, so this documentary is based on three countries in Africa: Rwanda, Kenya, and Ghana, and they're focusing on the startup sector and um, digital digital transformation that's happening in Africa. A lot of mobile development, robotics, as well as other forms of communication, mobile communication. So I put this item on the docket because I think it's important that people going into the IT field, especially the deep tech field of startups, and as well as looking for jobs, the gig economy, understand that what's going on in Africa right now is a new is where America was in the 2000 dot com stage. Um, Startups are popping up all over the place, not by the dozens, but by the hundreds. And Africans are trying to solve African problems with African solutions, and they are making a lot of traction. And I wouldn't hesitate to say that they are years ahead of African Americans right now, despite the fact the level of poverty that they have. They are years ahead in the thought process. And um, the main device that they use are cell phones, not full iPhones in terms of smartphones, but actually feature phones and dumb phones. So there's a lot of tech development happening around uh, these sort of robust platforms, if you will. And it's important that you pay attention to this video because it's going to tell you where you need to put your focus. And if you were trying to figure out where to go, this video will actually tell you where you should aim your fire at. Lionel, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yes, there's a few things I want to add. It's a great video to look at, great documentary. I want to say look at. And for anyone that's listening to this right now, to click on the first topic in the document and look at it. It's only 45 minutes long. In the beginning of the video, there was a few quick cut scenes of some of the tech businesses that are going on in Kenya. And one of the cutscenes was M-Pesa and others. Like I mentioned in the pre-show, I understand that the documentary highlighted some of the people that are that have been successful in terms of startups, or have their startups had their startups been going on for the past 8 years, and I understand that even those people that are in tech is a small minority in the country, but still, we on this channel, who freaking this channel and talk about the things we talk about, live in a bubble on YouTube. We live in a bubble, and I felt left behind. And I was looking at the tech that was going on. He had one guy, he make things out of a 3D printer, and he make other 3D printers out of. He used his other 3D printers to make other 3D printers, and use recycling parts for the what's left over in terms of electrical part make or recycle. He'll then order. To me, that's ingenious. Don't really haven't heard any other people do that. Also, it seems like the tech giants that the documentary was talking about in terms of countries were in East Africa, specifically Kenya and Rwanda, in West Africa, like you said, in the beginning, Ghana, and I'll even throw in Nigeria on the strength of they in Africa. And the last point I want to speak about is this Africa and Africans in the pure sense getting into the tech industry, even though they are leaping ahead of African Americans and Africans in the diaspora in a wider view. It's good psychologically because it, to me, it instills a one upmanship in us to say, hey, yeah, you're not. I'm not gonna. I'll say this. I'll say, well, I'm not gonna let someone from a black guy from Oklahoma best me. Yeah, I understand we are the same, and he's setting the bar for me to surpass him, and I'll set the bar for me to surpass him. And then you have another black man from Boston that say, well, I'll. So it instills that one-upsmanship, that gamesmanship in terms of the African race. And that's good for us psychologically to say, hey, if they can do it, I can do it, but I can do it better. And for them to turn around and say, okay, I see where you move. Let's make these things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I kind
Christian,
of
you
feel
have
like you
anything?
was calling me out there, man.
No.
Black guy in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I knew it was going to sound strange. I didn't want to say I'm not going to let someone from Africa up me, and I say, that'll sound too strange. So I brought it to here to illustrate my point.
So you called me out. I see. All right, I got it. Yeah, I can respect that. I can respect that. Yeah, looking at the video and everything that they're doing, I haven't worked with a 3D printer yet. So to see the stuff that the guy was making with his 3D printer, yeah, that's if I could ever get my hands on one, I might be able to do some of that. But I see where you're coming from. This guy's able to do this. What can I do to make it better?
Right.
And we just build up off of each other that way. I
Correct.
respect that. Still feel like you
Correct.
called me out though.
Preem,
One-upsmanship.
Preem, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I love this. This is my first time seeing this. I think this is going to be huge. Um, just huge. Because one, I mean, there's like an infinite number of problems over there that they can innovate for, that they can innovate solutions for using technology. Things that they've already, down in the folks down in the trenches, on the street, have already figured out through their head. But because of so much red tape and, the government interference and all that stuff, they just pretty much haven't been able to bring it to market or be able to partner with someone to go ahead and do it. So now with private companies going directly to the individuals, bypassing government for, to get those ideas done and built. I think this is absolutely going to blow up again because there's so many problems there that they can solve using technology. That's one. Two, as the old school Les Brown used to say, they're hungry, and to the point of someone over there not letting someone over here, one up them I mean, they're hungry. I mean, they're hungry. They want it. They're gonna work and grind for it. Um, and that's just gonna inspire them, to just really crank things out because they're innately they want it more because they're coming from a lot less. So I know I don't want to jump the shark here, but I mean I wouldn't be surprised. I mean if this thing does have legs, God willing, it does. It looks like it is, and it will. That I wouldn't be surprised if as far as from an innovation standpoint, they may even be pushing out better stuff in a decade or 15 years than you get out of China. Everybody look at what China's doing. I'm not saying as a nation, but I'm saying maybe this thing here, this app there, this product here, this thing there. You may find bigger and better things, ideas, startups coming out of here than you probably do out of China. Because one, again, I think the people are hungrier. Two, there are a lot more problems to solve. And three, hey, they're just smarter than Chinese. That's it.
I just want to also add some additional points. The government is actually funding these startups. So, and I think in just about every country, they funded over 100 startups. The United States government doesn't have anything really remotely close to something like this as in terms of a social equity program. Um, this is about social enterprise, and Africa is starting to see, most African countries are starting to see the value in addressing domestic issues, social issues from the ground. Whereas in America, the government pretty much tries to shove it down your throat and say, "We know what's best for you. This is what you need to do it our way or no way at all." And that's why you go into a lot of black neighborhoods, you don't see startups like this happening. So it's important to put emphasis behind the fact that there's a huge dynamical difference between the two, between America and African countries. When you allow people to think for themselves and actually innovate, or you get more innovation out of them, um, especially when you remove a lot of bureaucratic red tape. I think 170 startups is phenomenal. I haven't heard of anything like that before. That's a lot of startups. Anything additional you gentlemen want to add?
Nothing more for me.
That's it for me.
Hmm.
Uh,
So, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was thinking about like some of the extra computer parts and stuff that I had, donating them for schools. But since they're doing most of their stuff on like smartphones or probably tablets,
Hmm.
yeah, we're just gonna have to like start putting more emphasis on like mobile apps for like schools and whatnot. Because most of the technology they use over there is what, phones and tablets now, not as much
Yes,
as desktops.
yes. So that introduces the point that they have a problem with power, right? They don't have a actual stable grid. So grid stability is very infrequent. Um, so there's no real reason to have a huge desktop mining cryptos or anything like that because you lose 24 hours of power. You're behind the curve anyway. So there's no value, no return on investment there. But looking at this video, I see a number of areas that we've talked about that could actually be implemented in those parts of Africa without even being on the ground. You don't even have to be on the ground to understand, what's going on. Just looking at this video, you can just in 45 minutes you can see, okay, there's about 100 solutions, 100 problems that I can provide solutions to. Even what we're looking at right now, this luggage case with a dozen tablets in it and has a Wi-Fi connection and a 4G connection to it, and it provides internet and it provides charging base, and that's a portable. Um, it's
Portable
it's
classroom, pretty much.
yeah, it's a portable classroom, and it provides a backbone. That's something I haven't seen anything like that before. That's something new. But in the United States, we don't have that sort of that
Need.
necessity, right? We don't have that necessity. So
Can I
If you
also mention? Oh,
go
go
ahead,
ahead. I mean, cut you off.
go right ahead.
The documentary just hit on Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, and I put in Nigeria. Those are just a few countries in Africa, 54 continents countries. There are plenty more countries where we can, as diasporan Africans, go and make a huge imprint in terms of I'm losing my train of thought here. In terms of catching them up with the larger world and implementing these same programs, such as what Kenya and Rwanda do, and even Ghana. But we can do it also. There are other countries where it will not cost as much to do it if we were to go to these more developed African countries and try to do the same thing. So there's a lot of opportunities there, such as Spring just said. It seems seemingly infinite number that we have that we can go and out in a major way.
Right, and
So,
this
so
brings me. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I got a detailed question here. So if the government is involved, let's say this guy who has this idea for this suitcase thing, if it's part of a program that was government funded, and let's say it's this is something, I'm not saying this is, but let's say if this was something that the world would just be like, oh my God, matter, give me one, no, give me 10 of them, you know, and he has the mass for produce it. Would he reap the benefits of that wholly, or would he just get what's left over?
What do you mean by what's left over?
You mean like I mean like if this was to go out to the private market like this contraption that he has here, um, I mean, and a bunch of countries said, or other developing countries said, oh man, we need 10,000 of those over here, and in this part we need another 20,000 over here, and he just he kind of figures a way to scale that out and the mass produce it for a cost, of course. So would he be is that his shit, or will it have to go through the government, because the government helped to sponsor the program that enabled him to go ahead and bring his idea to market?
I imagine that'll go through him. I think the government just gives enough money to get started up, and then whatever he sells after that, they collect in taxes. The fact that like they gave him so much money to start up, bam, he's starting up a business. Okay, I need so many people to be able to ship it out. I need so many people to help me build it. I need so many people to help me put the package together. Then he starts hiring in people. The fact that he's able to now, he's big enough to hire in people. He's mass producing. We can tax him now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's typically the case.
Yeah, and that's what I'm just thinking.
I
That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know if that's typically the case. I mean, I think they will probably. I think when they fund startups, I think that the objective is to create as many Huawei's as possible. Huawei is a state-run Chinese company, so you're probably looking at a lot of these startups being state-run companies later on, depending on their growth, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's just more about it's more about nationalism. But I
Okay.
wanted okay. I wanted to put emphasis behind the fact that they use these smartphones. They're not using iPhones. They're not using the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 or whatever it is. They're using your most um, easily attainable smartphones, your dumb phones and feature phones. So those are the two major phones available to most of these low income areas. Um, let me see if I can fast forward it or yeah. This is another interesting app that they have right here. Um, basically a ride sharing app, ride hailing app that allows because motorcycles are the most cost efficient vehicle available. The ability to flag down a ride on a motorcycle and then use the telemetry on a smartphone to determine how stable the driver is, and then you can rate the driver. That's amazing. That's just absolutely amazing. Never even thought about that.
Me neither. When I saw that, but then so that is specific to their country in terms of, well, that's specific to their geographical area, because like the co-founder said, he was talking to his co-founder and he said that they agreed that within the first 10 seconds they can tell what kind of driver the taxi person is. So it's unique to that area, and they on that. And come to think about it, that's really not unique to their area. You have Southeast Asia that goes through there, so you can create a app in Africa
Hmm.
and license it to other non-African countries and grow that way.
True, true. That, but my point in saying that was that the idea of utilizing those features of the phone is something that most people in the United States aren't thinking on that level. If the United States had to determine, I don't want to put any ideas out there because I don't want insurance companies raking
Mm-hmm.
in any cash off my ideas. But the point that I'm making is that when you're in that side of the area and you have that fundamental understanding of um, smartphone technology, um, and the environment itself, and then you're saying I'm going to leverage these digital infrastructures, the cyber infrastructure for this sort of use. That's, to me, that's robust. I don't see anybody else, um, talking in that manner. So that's why I brought it up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me get to the next area. Mm, okay, yeah, this is key. This is amazing. These kiosks. Um, I thought these kiosks were affordable and actually very useful. Put the solar panels up. They're used for charging cell phones because of the rolling blackouts inside Rwanda, and the ability to pay bills and things like that. It provides Wi-Fi. I thought that's a really robust idea. Do you have anything you want to say about this?
I have nothing to say about this one.
All
So
right.
so this does what again? I,
It's a
I
key. It's a kiosk that has two solar panels on there that allows you to charge your phone on there, because of the rolling blackouts that they have in Rwanda, and it also provides Wi-Fi access, and you can actually get new prepaid cards for your phone,
oh yeah,
and
yeah,
and
nice.
and, and they franchise these kiosks out so people who have them can actually make profit off of them, while at the same time, providing access to charging and other pieces, other Wi-Fi infrastructure. So, like this lady here, this black woman here, uses that as a job. I mean, that's her income. I mean, United States, you see, in predominantly black areas, you'll see like guys selling incense and oils and stuff like that from their little, um, from their little cart, their little mobile cart. But here is something that I haven't seen anything like this before. So I thought that was really, a really nifty idea. Kumasi, yeah, 150 startups since 2010. This is in Ghana.
Yeah, this is great, man. I didn't even get a chance to see this, man. But yeah, yeah, unique people coming up with unique solutions to unique problems, man. It's a win-win-win. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Right, and taking these recycled car parts and actually breaking them down and taking the usable features and functions out of them. Um, we don't really do that in the United States. We kind of just crush vehicles and kind of keep it moving. But I mean, you have junkyards that you can take usable parts off of it, but for the most part, they just crush cars for the most part.
Kind of like to my thing, my when I was kicking the tires last week on that micro transport thing to be in a position to get whatever's discarded, because you know for them it wouldn't cost them anything. They wouldn't care less. Yeah, just get rid of it, just take it, give us pennies on the dollar, whatever. And you put those bad boys on the tanker and just whoop, send them right down here to somebody. Give them the app, give them all that stuff, and you know they'll be good to go.
Right, and they have these science sets. That's what they call them. In the United States, we call them kits. But basically, these kits allow people to learn how to solder and things like that. I think for the most part now you see a lot of people with these Arduino kits that allow them to build robotics and stuff like that, but probably like at a higher cost. Here they're coming from nothing; they're coming from scratch and they're doing it. So I think that's really interesting. I thought this was really key too, and this goes back to my point about mobile development. Um, you have a farmer who doesn't have access to the internet or some form of other wireless connection, um, and they're pushing down information to him by hitting *399, and that allows farmer to know whether or not he should plant crops today or what the conditions are, so on and so forth. It spits it back out in text. You don't need a high powered smartphone for that. That's a really key feature. And then you have these MediRecs, which is putting medical records on the blockchain, making it easily accessible for doctors and nurses and whatnot to have access to this information.
Yeah, that was the email I sent out today for the government uh, land and government records put on the blockchain
Hmm.
to help um, in that aspect, in those aspects.
Hey, what's going on, Young Grizzly?
Good night, gentlemen. Good night.
How you doing, young Grizzly? How you doing?
All right, man. Another night. Interesting stuff you guys are talking about. Like, if I may weigh in on the solar panel idea, after you guys are done. What are we
I,
talking about now?
yeah, I think we're just about done here.
Okay, I'll wait.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. As far as the solar panel stuff, though, I think you're going to see a revitalization of solar panels in the US and that whole market. I know it was like a big boom. You started seeing it a lot on the news, and then it's kind of died down in the past couple years. I think it was like maybe a decade ago. It was like a little bit less than a decade ago. It was a real big thing. But I think you're going to see that really ramp up again, along with other natural energy sources, wind, water, so on and so forth. Well, not geothermal in the U.S. so much, because it's not really a big thing here, or there's not a big source of it here. But I definitely think it's going to be something where you're going to see more of that, and seeing that mobile kiosk um, kind of makes me think it's like, all right, cool. That's going to be another thing that's going to be a big deal because you're going to start seeing the benefits of it, or really the cost savings is the biggest thing. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, wow, that's yeah, that's going to be another thing coming. or coming back, I should say, in popularity, in terms of popularity.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially all these iPhones, and these cracked screens on them. They need a charge, right? So there's always two things about the iPhone that you see that people have is the screen is cracked and it needs a charge. It's a very, very common feature.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely so damn true. But I think that's going to be something like that. Uh, we're not in terms of the U.S. market. We're not going to be the drivers of that technology much anymore. We may not have may have already lost that spot. I'm making an assumption there, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Hmm. I would say China is probably number one in artificial intelligence. I think we covered that article before, but um, it, it, Africa and the countries within Africa itself have different problems on the ground, so they're trying to
Hmm.
address it from a different perspective.
Right.
Hmm.
And you're starting to see that. I mean, that's really cool. Especially if other countries that are coming online in terms of being westernized or being first worldized. I think I can make that a word or a phrase. But seeing more and more countries come into the first world paradigm, um, things like that is going to allow them to jump, and they're probably going to do it a lot cleaner. Well, to some extent.
Hmm. Right. I want to jump to this next piece on the docket because it falls in line with some of the areas of I want to focus on tonight. So this one is from Quartz.com, QZ.com. How mainland Chinese factories pump out $65 smartphones with a lot of help from Taiwan. Um, as you contemplate the just launched Samsung Galaxy S4, which will retail for hundreds of dollars, do you wonder how Chinese firms turn out Android phones that sell for as little as $65? Well, MIT Technology Review will tell you it carries an interview with a Chinese entrepreneur who explains how he buys up smartphone components and then sends them to a range of factories in Shenzhen near the Hong Kong border for assembly. The rapid spread of smartphone technology began in 2011 when companies from Taiwan, the self-governed island near mainland China with a huge tech industry, started selling turnkey systems um, comprising phone designs and set of chips. The smartphone by numbers idea was revolutionary, as the New York Times explains very well here. Taiwan MediaTek, Taiwan's MediaTek has been a huge driving force behind the massive smartphone sales now being achieved by Chinese firms such as Lenovo, rather than simply providing manufacturers with a chip, writes the Times. Ling Yang, MediaTek offers instructions for building a phone, the software architecture to run it, and dedicated consultants to advise phone makers during the production process. So, um, and again, these turnkey these turnkeys are also used to make bandit phones, counterfeits of big brand smartphones such as iPhones. And MediaTek also supplies companies in other emerging markets such as India and Brazil. So, India, Brazil, Latin America, Africa, most of your Central Asia and Middle East are your emerging markets for these cost efficient smartphones. People don't want, not that people don't want, but um, they want phones that can do things, but they don't need an iPhone, if that makes any sense. It's called a feature phone.
That makes
Um,
sense.
yes.
I said that makes sense. The fact that they're making these this cost effective, quote unquote, that means more and more people are going to start developing for Android just because it's more readily available.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and you're starting to see like even it mentions TCL, and I'm a big fan of the TCL the Roku TVs, especially once I found out about their API. and actually doing work with the API to actually make like a little even command line version of a controller, so I can actually control those TVs on and off and do all types of other stuff with them. And creating that as just a platform, and you're seeing more and more TVs come out with that, where they're not just the smart TVs that do that have all the apps on them. They're more like Google Chromecast devices, and then they also have apps. They're more like even big phones at this point too,
Right.
more so.
Right. They're treating them like they're treating smart TVs like they would treat a a basic smartphone.
Mm-hmm. Right, and then then of course that's going to be just video conferencing. That's just the next step for them. Put cameras on these TVs because I think quite a few of them already have them, like some of your higher end ones. Or you can always hook it up via USB. And again, with most of these TVs running a Linux kernel, you could hook up just about any USB to USB like Logitech camera, and then turn your whole TV into a video conferencing, whatever station.
Right, and now you're talking about WhatsApp, Slack, Google, Skype. They even have Skype now for Android. So, you're seeing these sort of messaging platforms come into play, and even Facebook has a project going as well that allows for functionality. So these open source projects are taking place, and that's why I wanted to have this discussion tonight. And put people on, and kind of kick the tires and have people chime in and ask questions and things like that. Let me get to the next article that I wanted to point out. AFRICOM 2018, Africa joins the digital revolution with first ever smart feature phones. AFRICOM 2018 may be over, but the excitement and innovation from the show continue to energize those who attended, including the Kai OS technology team. It was a groundbreaking event, not just for us and our partners, but for all the leaders who that brought new ideas to the table, and for the African continent, which has so much potential for growth. We talked about this earlier. We went over this in the first video, but they're putting more emphasis behind the growth. So Kai announced 2 partnerships to bring smart feature phones to Africa for the first time. There couldn't have been a better settings to announce 2 exciting new partnerships that will introduce the first 3G and 4G feature phones to Africa. One with MTM, which is I think that's one out in Ghana, China Mobile, and Unisoc, and the other with Orange. Both collaborations will bring new wave of affordable mobile devices to users in the region, all of which will boast the rich functionality that KaiOS is known for. This includes services like the Google Assistant, Facebook, and Google Maps, as well as functionalities such as Kai Store, Bluetooth, and GPS. Users will have access to these and other advanced digital services starting from Q1 2019. We are in Q1 2019. These partnerships are meaningful as we look ahead to 2019 and beyond. After the success of the JioPhone in India, we believe Africa is the next frontier for a smart feature phone revolution. Let me read that again. After the success of the JioPhone in India, we believe Africa is the next frontier for a smart feature phone revolution. Though there are certainly obstacles to overcome, the potential to connect more than 800 million African people who still lack basic internet access today is highly motivating. Through collaborations with partners, carriers, device manufacturers, chipset makers, content creators, we feel confident we can bring valuable and relevant digital services to communities across the continent. Here we are today. We met outstanding. Let me just finish this up real quick. We met outstanding local app developers at the Apps Africa Innovation Awards. Who knew they had such a thing? Kai was among the prestigious sponsors of the Apps Africa Innovation Awards, a gathering of the best and brightest app developers Africa has to offer. anyways, I don't want to read too much of this, but the whole point of this is that Kai OS, like Reynolds Cherry is talking about in the chat, Kai OS is a fork of Mozilla's Firefox OS, and Firefox abandoned the project in 2017, I think, or 2016, and Kai OS emerged from it, and Google dumped $22 million into this project um, to move it forward. $22 million. So now you have 800 million new subscribers to sign up that they're focusing on in Africa, and you're talking about Google putting $22 million into this platform, and digital services is the new entire, or digital services, digital transformation, and digital consultancy is going to be the new wave in Africa this year.
When you say digital consultancy, what do you mean?
Meaning you're working with, you are, as a consultant, you're working with people on the ground who have not reached that, who do not have a platform. So now you're talking to farmers, you're talking to people who have these temp carts and things of that nature. You're delivering digital services to people who have not had it yet. So that's like,
in some cases you would call them onboarders as well. People that would onboard you to a platform or show you the benefits of the platform in a sense and how you can actually use it. I think that's another section of it. But I'm looking at this and I'm listening to what you're saying, and this is literally just introducing fire to man at this point. So once you introduce this to that market, it's just going to go crazy because the amount of apps that are going to be developed for it. I mean, you talked about in the first article or first video where they're using the telemetry, or is it telemetry or the
telemetry?
The telemetry. So they're using the telemetry in the phone just to see how well balanced the person is as a motorcycle driver. That's important. So things like that is that's what you're getting from that. And people in quote unquote first world are not thinking on that level because they just don't need to, in a sense.
Or somebody else is thinking for them.
Yeah, there's also that too.
I just want to read this paragraph real quick. In the midst of discussions around cutting-edge technology and pushing the bounds of the mobile internet, we must remember that many emerging markets, especially in Africa, don't have the network infrastructure to support those advancements. While other regions soon start deployment of 5G networks, many countries in Africa still don't have 4G or even 3G. While we can play a meaningful part in solving challenges of device affordability and reducing data costs, Kai OS can't solve the network infrastructure issue. For this reason, it is great to see many other parties working on the piece of the puzzle, and it was a big motivation to see connecting the unconnected and closing the digital divide.
And yeah, I mean,
sorry for muting you, Young Grizzly. You were making noise in the background. Unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I thought I had muted myself. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah, and that's where a lot of money should be dumped. It's kind of like, a part of U.S. history and why the U.S. is so quote unquote great is the actual the road infrastructure that we have. And then, of course, along with that, the data infrastructure that came along with it, or that's laid alongside that road, or our street system. So if you start seeing where they make investments into the digital infrastructure or the internet base or bandwidth infrastructure, then you're going to start to see other things come on board in terms of making improvements in that area for the people as well. But there's good and bad to that.
Christian, you have anything you want to add?
No, nothing at this time. And I think what's the name? Firefox got rid of that like late 2015, 2016.
Yeah, it's around that time.
Yeah.
So
no comment from me.
Okay. So Kai OS is actually built off of HTML5 and JavaScript. So it's a very web-driven phone. It doesn't require a whole lot of power, so you can get a lot done without a big Snapdragon 845 processor with eight to 20 cores or whatever it is that it has. So this next piece from AndroidAuthority.com, watch out, Android Go, Gyro phone set to support the world's most popular messaging app. And it's been updated. So WhatsApp has now been added, YouTube has been added, and Facebook has been added to this platform. So now you have all the most common communications apps added to a feature phone. And again, these phones only cost as low as $20. So now you're talking about bringing um, using these candy bar phones for $20 and delivering digital services to them. Um, this is what's in demand now in Africa.
Thing almost looks like a Blackberry.
You're terrible.
I'm just saying. Like,
What's even cooler about this is as I get a little bit deeper into like web development, which I gotta start doing again. As I get like a little bit more well versed or learn more about web development, there are things like progressive web apps and how you don't really need applications so much from the app store. You can have a progressive web app that acts mostly like an app, and then you have also apps that at their core they're mostly Java based, and that's mostly your Electron apps that go on your desktop, and it makes it a lot easier to roll those things out as well. But I'm learning more about that, so
Yeah.
uh, and you're going to see that that's going to get bigger into the mobile market as well, because now I can work on one Electron app and then make sure that it ships with all the dependencies and make it for each platform. So I just say, hey, listen, I want a Mac version, Windows version, and an Android version, and then go from there, or a Linux version, I should say, and then go from there.
hmm Yeah. This next article is from MobileSyrup.com. Google invests $22 million in feature phone operating system KaiOS. KaiOS is huge in India, reportedly holding 15% of the market and knocking iPhone, out of second place. So we covered an article yesterday about Apple, taking a hit in major markets, losing $450 billion over the last quarter. They're not doing too well. This article points out that they've been knocked out of that position in second place in India due to feature phones taking over. So that's where we are right now with this. Um, the strategy is working well. KaiOS told TechCrunch that it has shipped more than 40 million KaiOS phones to date in India. In India, KaiOS overtook iOS as the second most popular mobile operating system after Android. So Android is number one. Now KaiOS is number two, and iPhones are just a distant third. So I'm getting close to my next point.
That's not good for Apple at all.
Well, it is the rotten apple. This is Tizen. Um, Tizen is a Linux Foundation based operating system for smartphones. Samsung has been the big driver behind it with their Samsung Gear watches, as well as their TV sets and their DVD Blu-ray players. Um, this is a higher featured OS for smartphones that is open source too, um, than KaiOS. So I only use KaiOS to talk about feature phones, but here we're talking about something a bit more advanced as an alternative to Android and to iOS. And it has a lot of support. Um, Let me see if I can find the article or the blog entry. Yeah, so last blog entry was November 1st. Version 5.0 is out. This is based on the Linux kernel. So if I remember correctly, the the uh, the language that they use, I believe, is C and C++. I think it's just written in C though. I think the apps are written in C. I could be wrong, but that's something that we'll delve into more. And again, for those of you who want to follow along, the docket is in the description beneath the video.
All right, so my bad, I hit the mute up. These are allowed everything that's seen so far, everything that's on the docket tonight. Not only are we showing that it's possible, and people are going into these type of industries, learning this code and learning these open source uh, open source code. Not to use code twice, but also we're showing hey who's doing it, where you can do it, and guiding people in those directions also.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it seems like so far to me, which is
Right.
which is good. Which is good because a lot of people have that question mark in their mind of, well, I understand you're telling me this, but where do I go? How do I learn it? Well, we're showing it to you now.
Mm-hmm. So Sailfish OS is another spinoff in the Linux Foundation um, open source project as an independent mobile OS. This actually can replace the current operating system on your Android device. It's been it's almost one compatible. So the previous articles I read on the docket explains that these Chinese smartphone factories are pumping out these turnkey smartphones. Now you have an open source operating system that you can just drop right on there. You can customize it. You can click it yourself. Port it to that turnkey device, ship it out to Africa, and now we got we're the new Titans in the on the game field. So that's why I brought this up. It looks robust. It's very smooth. I don't know how much support it's getting, but it's building Latin America's tech independence with Sailfish OS. So one of the greatest motivators to start the project for Hala Group, the Sailfish licensing partner in Latin America, was the simple fact that Latin America has been technologically dependent and importer of technology for a long time. The Hala Group wanted to change this and announced the beginning of a Sailfish OS based project in early 2017. So Latin America is getting on board, and you can actually download it too.
This is pretty cool. It's my first time seeing something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Building Latin America tech independence with self. This is something that I'm probably lose my train of thought. This is something that people can jump on, and I just forgot what I was about to say. I hit it. I just lost it.
Write it down, brother. Write it down.
Yeah.
So I could probably put this on my old Nexus 7 tablet and play with it, and maybe develop some apps for it, since they ain't doing nothing anyway.
Yeah, I had quite a few Chinese tablets that did not run very well. I think they were stuck with like Android KitKat. They really couldn't connect to anything. They never really held a charge, not a charge, but a connection very well. So um, definitely something to think about.
Question:
Yes, sir.
uh, Does anybody remember Ubuntu's uh, shot at the mobile market, um, and whatever happened to that?
They
Yep.
dropped it.
He dropped it.
Yeah.
'Cause I think, what was that, like 6 years ago, maybe more? It was like all over these magazines.
They stopped supporting it in 2016. I think they just dropped it. The person who's guiding the company is had all this intention on having this African centered operating system, and I don't think he was the right person to actually manage the project. Um, he just didn't
Mm,
have the vision. He was doing too many things at once instead of just completing one milestone at a time.
mm,
That was part of the problem. So
mm.
um, it's based on the Linux Foundation anyway. So um, I
Yeah, I
think
know that was.
Sailfish. Yeah, I think Sailfish kind of picked up the tab on that. So
Yeah, because I see these, like, these mobile these 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 Linux based operating systems for the mobile market, and I'm like, I remember that was like a big deal a couple years ago, and I just never heard much about it after the fact, and I wasn't one to like really get into it to try, and I wasn't a big coder back then.
mhm. Yeah, everybody thought that they had an opportunity at the market because it was open source. And the platforms were very portable. It was an idea at the time. I think coming out of like 2013, 2014, there was this sudden emergence of mobile operating systems after Android. Everybody wanted to be um, different from Google, so to speak, and didn't work out too well because if you don't have access to them, the main library of apps that everybody uses, you're kind of SOL. That's what killed Microsoft. Microsoft Windows Phone. Microsoft came back once, twice, and three times, and every single time they failed because they could not get YouTube and the Google services. They couldn't get those services onto their platform at all, and that it died. So it died because of services, lack of services. I should say. Let me jump to the next article. Web OS ready to move beyond TV, says LG. This is from TheVerge.com. LG just released open source version of WebOS that's freely available to anyone that wants to download and poke around the code. The release of WebOS Open Source Edition is meant to act as a catalyst to drive further adoption of WebOS beyond LG televisions, smart refrigerators, and the occasional never to be released smartwatch. So devices like WebOS tablets and set-top boxes, as pictured in the LG supplied image above. This is the second. This is the second time an open source version of WebOS has been released. The first coming under the failed tenure of HP back in 2011. LG's crosstown rival Samsung develops and uses open source Tizen. We just covered that operating system on a variety of devices, including smartwatches, televisions, Blu-ray players, and robotic vacuums. LG hinted at its broader ambitions with the Palm developed OS when it acquired the rights from HP back in 2013. Quote: When LG adopted WebOS on when L, when LG adopted WebOS for popular smart TV lineup in 2013, it did so with the knowledge that WebOS had tremendous potential, said LG Chief Technology Officer Dr. I.P. Park. WebOS has come a long way since then and is now a mature and stable platform ready to move beyond TVs. So everybody has the stable platforms that they're looking to port. Africa has over 800 million new subscribers that they need to sign up, and they need these devices. And the initial video that we covered shows that there's this massive digital transformation um, startups being popped up all over the place to address a lot of these issues. And I think that we should be focusing on these things as well.
And one of my other companies I work for, Metro Appliances and More, we actually sell a whole lot of the dishwashers that's got that smart interface in front of it.
Hmm.
I don't see that much of a need to have a smart screen on the dishwasher, but we sell a ton of them.
It's
Oh
about connecting devices in the house.
yeah, man, I was talking up the storm. I didn't know I was muted. Yeah, I've seen commercials where they have ranges, well, stoves disconnected. They'll say, "Hey, Google, tell the stove something," and then they'll have their refrigerator, basically their whole kitchen connected to uh, like a well to the web, and they'll be doing it this way. It's marketed like that. I'm sure there's other things such as in the article and the things we've spoken about before that this will integrate into, but it is being used right now. Just I think you, Mike, we spoke about how the Alexa and the Google Home, even Facebook's, what you call face? Yeah, their new device is out. I can't remember the name of it
I
right
think
now,
it's
but
Portal
Oculus.
or something.
Portal, yeah, Facebook Portal, yeah. Oh yeah, and Oculus, yeah. There, that's been advertised.
Right? You think about Africa, right? Think about Africa real quick. You have all of these non-connected businesses on the ground, farmers, um, transport, for logistics, right? You have these small merchants in these flea markets. Um, None of these businesses are connected at all. Agriculture, transportation, logistics, small mercantile. None of these businesses are connected. So you think if you are a farmer and you have all these cows that you want to milk,
Mm-hmm.
you need something like a blockchain to put your produce and things on to make sure that they're getting to the customer down down in the next city or the next village or wherever it is on time and fresh.
Now, allow me to throw this out there. With blockchain, people liken blockchain to Internet 2.0, but now we're also we hear about Web 3.0, and with these devices that are interconnected, they will have to have somewhere to download their data for it to be more useful and more of a blockchain type of solution would be in place because these things will have IoT embedded in them and so forth. With all of these things that we're talking about, with all these technologies being talked about, software, hardware, this picture is looking like a more of a like a helpful society. That's what I'm trying to steer right here. A more efficient and yeah, that type of society. The word escapes me. The word I'm trying to think of.
Connected.
Yeah, socially connected.
Yeah, streamline.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's why I brought it up because I think a lot of pieces of Africa are just not connected. They're just not
Mm-hmm.
connected, and there's a need to deliver digital services, digital marketing, all of these aspects on the ground. There is a human capital is very valuable in Africa. So you have to utilize these this human capital and these and merge it with these digital services in order to get this um, excellent robust value out of it.
And you mentioned not everyone in Africa is connected. Only in the continent of Africa, only a handful that are connected in a way that's meaningful. A person may be connected, but that person may not be able to pay their bill for the internet or have a premium type of internet the next month. So to
Mhm.
have that continuous connectivity and to have African ingenuity in terms of startups and businesses that serve the African people, that large, that sort of economy. We read an article where even now, it's in the trillions. Imagine what it'll be once. Now that I think about it, I stated it before. Once a good infrastructure is put in place.
And that could take time. I mean, the video that we looked at was for Rwanda. They were just now doing the first phase of their fiber rollout. You know, that could take years. I think in Massachusetts it took us like 10 years to get fiber completely rolled out from 2002, 2003 up to about 2011 or something like that. It's a huge rollout. That was on the outskirts of the city. Now the city is still in the transition phase. They won't be finished until 2022.
Wow. Jobs. It's a lot of jobs and a lot of business opportunity. Well, I digress.
Christian, you have something to say?
No, nothing else at this time.
Or was that Young Grizzly?
The only thing I have a question.
Yes,
Would it be? Do you think in your experience or reading all this information that a fiber rollout would actually be faster on the African continent, especially with the lack of development in a larger in like the more rural and I guess inner Africa areas or inland Africa areas?
well, yes and no. I think they have a lot of environmental challenges. You have a lot of heritage areas and wildlife protected areas that you can't go through. So I think that's what the holdup is.
And wouldn't wireless be great for that? I mean, you have your site. What do they call that? Where you have the line of sight wireless, and you can beam your signals over that.
Yes and no. So, big infrastructure needs hard wire. So you can get away with that. You can get away with that wireless with regular consumers, but for big businesses, they need manufacturing facilities. They need hardwire. That's just the nature of the business until something else comes across. They use satellites. They use satellites in some areas as a backup, but for the most part, fiber optic, or even Cat 8, Category 8 cable is actually rival to single mode fiber. So it hasn't come out. It doesn't come out until next year, but Cat 8 would rival something like that.
Okay. What's the maximum bandwidth of Cat 8?
Oh, I think that's up in the terabytes.
Oh, wow. All over copper, huh? Surprised that sucker doesn't melt.
That's impressive. That Cat, the terabyte, terabyte upload speeds or just download speeds?
It's supposed to be a terabit of information or a terabit of data in per 1,000 feet or something like that.
Wow.
With single mode fiber, that's very expensive, and it has to be put in a place where it can't be disrupted, because once you stretch it out over a distance, it becomes very fragile because it's glass, and you're pushing all this data down it. You have the potential for not backups, but congestion and things like that, because too much data may be coming down the pipe. Africa has 1 billion people on it, and it's projected by 2050 it's going to have 1.7 billion people. So there's exponential growth over the next generation. And then you have all these devices coming online, smart phones and feature phones and watches and dryers and bullshit. All that stuff is going to come online, and it has to come on some way through a stable connection. So.
And these Cat 8 cable, the termination for Cat 8 is crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's so complicated right now. So if you're the government, you're probably looking at this saying, I have money, but I don't know whether or not I should wait till Cat 8 comes out, or should I just put all my money into fiber now, right? That's probably the kind of discussions that they're having.
But wouldn't fiber be cheaper though? I mean, just because it's just so prevalent, like it's everywhere.
Not necessarily. So just as an example, in Massachusetts, for a municipal rollout of fiber would cost $180 million.
Wow.
If you're an African, $180 million can be put in other places.
And how
True.
much does it cost to repair that line in case it gets damaged?
We don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It seems like to do it in Africa, it will have to be a private business
Well, yeah,
instead
that's
of
where
the
your
government.
Huawei, right? That's where your Huawei's, your ZTEs, and your MTNs. That's where all those companies come in. That they're supposed to provide that sort of that piece of infrastructure, and we are supposed to come in as the brain trust and come in and provide digital services.
I like that. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. I understand now.
So nothing's really going to move until we can fix this, physical cable connectivity issue. Let me just jump to this next piece from the Linux Foundation. I know it's been sitting up there for a while. So inside Android, an intro to Android internals. Get a hands-on tour of the internals of the popular Android operating system for mobile and other devices. This course will teach you the ins and outs of the Android and anatomy with a focus on hands-on experience. So it does look like a lot of money, 3150. I'm just putting up there as an example. How you pay for it is your business. We do not subsidize it, and it's based on beginner level experience, and it has a high course rating, and you get a free Chromebook out of it. So get hands-on labs, 4 days of instructor-led class time. That's not a lot. Most people spend a week on these hangouts talking about R. Kelly and issues. But on this platform, on this channel, we will focus on digital transformation. And I'm a big fan of the Linux Foundation. I support them. I don't know about you guys on the Hangout, but I've had positive experience with them.
I am certified through them.
I'm not certified yet, but I am taking a couple of courses on there. Not that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm impressed with their setup.
Yeah, I'm taking the course as we speak. Not in.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder which Chromebook they give you.
Oh, I think it might be Samsung or something like that. The prerequisites are the course is preliminarily intended for experienced programmers and engineers who are interested in learning the fundamentals of adapting Android to new target systems. Students should be proficient in C programming language. I mentioned that earlier. Having a good understanding of C++ and a working knowledge of Java. So, to develop for Android and other Linux open source platforms, have to have an understanding of C, C++, and knowledge of Java.
Java.
Yeah, have a cup of Java.
Exactly.
Let me jump to the next piece real quick, and then we'll open it up for open mic. What is this? This is from Udacity. I think quite a few people have vouched for Udacity. I personally have not used them yet, but they have a nano degree program on Android Basics by Google. No programming experience, no problem. Start developing Android apps today. So they have a new class starting in 10 days. And the time to complete is 3 months. Study 10 hours a week. No experience required. Class starts January 15th. Want to learn Android programming basics, but don't know where to start? And this nano degree program will show you the way. We've developed this curriculum with Google for true beginners instead interested in developing apps for the next billion Android users. So this ties into Sailfish OS that I mentioned earlier, as well as Tizen. These are both open source platforms based on Linux, and has a parallel relationship with Android. So that is in the docket. Excuse me.
Yeah, I haven't used Udacity in years, but I took a course with them years ago, and it was always good. That was like kind of they were one of the first that I could remember that were actually doing a lot of like online courses for the public, not like your blackboards that were mainly for institutions that were already available.
Mhm. And this is the second link to become an Android developer. Um, this is 2 4-month terms, 10 hours a week, 8 months. You see that they have the Android smartwatch, and the Pixel phone, and the tablet, Samsung tablet. So, um, yeah. So these are fundamental areas to study from. And then we have Python 3.7. Um, Python is the most common language used for application development. Not so much on the mobile side, but even on the cloud side, you need to know Python. So if you're going to develop apps that connect to the cloud, you want to have some kind of basic understanding or literacy of Python. 3.7 is the latest version of it. There are a number of new features in 3.7 in comparison to the 2.7 I think everybody uses. I don't know if there's any compatibility issues, but that has yet to be seen. Again, this is in the docket. And this another one is from cbtnuggets.com. Python programming. It's video based, so and it has virtual labs, quizzes, and practice exams. I have not taken this program yet, or this training yet, but it's 6 hours long and it's entry level.
Can somebody tell me what the big deal is with Python? I'm just I look at it, I'm not impressed.
Damn.
You're cynical.
I just like I understand like it's supposed to be easy and so on and so forth, but if I have to import every little thing, like I understand the reason why the import because it actually makes it a little bit lighter, and you only put it like bring in what you need, but I'm just not impressed with Python. It's not
Okay.
that, but I want to hear somebody like you know louder with Crowder change my mind, like like
Oh,
tell me why.
Reynolds in the chat seems to be very enthusiastic about it. He says he moves to 3.6 uh, when 3.6 came out here. I moved from 2.7. So I don't know the difference. I'm not a programmer, so.
Nah, I haven't
Ronald,
done
if
enough
you
in it.
can, oh sorry, go ahead.
I haven't done enough in it to say yeah or nay.
Mhm.
I'm just learning it on the side.
Ronald, if you can put a couple things in the chat, please. Like, I'd like to see like the point. Thanks.
Okay, this next one is from Medium.com. Learn and build a JavaScript blockchain. The best way to build blockchain is to understand blockchain is to build one. In this part one of JavaScript blockchain series, we will cover the block object and blockchain object, and discuss its infrastructure and its structure and implications. So, the reason why I brought this up was because these feature phones do support JavaScript because they're HTML based. If you're trying to secure user data, right? PII, personal identifiable information, payments, and things of that nature. You want to have some form of blockchain in there that's either privatized or some form of secrecy on the blockchain. Having a feature phone doesn't mean you have to lack security, and I think implementing a blockchain on a feature phone is actually a nifty idea to protect Africans and Africans' information so that it's not being squandered away and profitized off of by your mega corporations like Facebook and Google. So that is in the docket as well. It's a very interesting read. Very helpful. Taught me some things that I did not know. And this is the last one I want to go over, which is REST API. So REST is usually used on client server relationships. So you have these apps that connect to cloud computing, and they use the RESTful API to actually communicate with each other. So if you have these feature phones, you can actually bake apps into the phone and have them connect to the actual service in the cloud, so to speak. So Netflix, for example, I mean, obviously you're not going to use Netflix on the. Let's not use Netflix. Let's use Facebook. You don't need a Facebook app, but you can actually use the web-based version of Facebook and bake it into this feature phone, and then have it communicate out to the actual Facebook environment in the cloud through the API, through the REST API. Christian, you have anything you want to add to this?
I got nothing right now.
Okay.
APIs all day, baby. Let's go.
Yes.
I mean, the big thing for me as I'm learning more about REST APIs and or APIs in general is taking the data you have in your database or exposing features in your database, such as adding users, deleting users, authenticating with or authenticating through the REST APIs, your gateway in a sense. And again, that term can be decoupled from the API itself and be, placed somewhere else on that, because you can use other different programs to actually have an API gateway. But it exposes some of your backend to to third-party applications in a more controlled manner. So instead of having a direct connection to your database server and opening up port 3306 for your MySQL server.
Grizzly, are you there?
And giving it a username and password so it can directly interact and get and make database calls, so it can actually take information and then do whatever with it. You actually just you expose a REST API, and then through that, it gives you a little bit more control over what you can and cannot do, and then allows you to actually do things like pagination already in it. So you don't have to say, hey, I only want you to do 100 queries. You can tell your REST API, you can program it in your REST API to only do 100 queries, or return, I should say, 100 results. And that makes things a little bit better in the long run, in terms of security. Actually, not just security, but resources is kind of one of the bigger things.
Right. Too many devices connected at a time could actually bring down the infrastructure.
Right. Especially if you if you have a decent REST API and then you have a decent API gateway, you can start doing things like, or once you start breaking those things up for scale, REST JSON. Yes. JSON all day. I'm getting into the JSON format. But so if you have like something like Nginx as a web server and you can use that as an API gateway, they actually have a whole product um, about using that focuses on that. And you could start doing things like load balancing and routing in the API gateway itself. So then when you expose your REST API or expose a URL, whether it be a get or post URL, and there are differences between the two, of course, reusability being the biggest one, and then security the next. But when you start doing things like that and exposing your API, you can actually start to scale it a little bit better. And then you can have those different front ends that offer more security, more scalability, and I, I want to say redundancy, but that's alongside of scalability as well.
Mhm. Is Preem, you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I'm trying to figure my devices out. I'm good.
Okay, okay. I know.
Listening and learning. Saw these on an article. I just really wanted to get to what not to get hear you all's insight on this, but um, with the Python, not the Python, well, that Python and the blockchain dockets,
Mhm.
topics. Oh, man, my words tonight. I am looking to dive into.
And this also brings me to my about it brings me to the next piece that's not on the docket about
Hey, Mike.
yes, sir.
Hey, yeah. And yeah, I do actually. I do have a question about what you were just talking about. Um, so, um, what made my ears perked up? You made the statement. You said, "Okay, this thing will allow you." When you use the Facebook analogy, you said you wouldn't have to have the Facebook app on your phone. Um, you're on one of these feature phones. It could go out to the web, to the Facebook platform, I guess, grab a certain portion of it, a certain piece of it, and then put it on the phone. And then can you break that down, or can you ABC that a little bit more?
Right. So the problem with feature phones is that they don't have all the power of a full smartphone. So what happens is you're not having the full app that you would on an iPhone or an Android. And what they figured out to do was on a feature phone is to just put a web-based version link on the phone, like an icon on your desktop, and when you click on that, it's going to take you into the login, your username and password, and then you kind of just go back into the web version of Facebook. Typically, what happens on an Android or iOS platform is that there's a there's a version of the app made for that platform, and it has all of these robust features baked into it. Um, and that's customizable, and it uses a lot of space that most feature phones don't have. So that's why feature phones you just use basically a web link back out to the Facebook web version of the site. You what I'm trying to get to with this is how do we create a better version of what's already available. Um, these feature phones are not all that fast. They're fast enough to dial a number and text and things like that. But what happens is with feature phones is that they don't multitask at all. So they do one thing at a time. What I'm looking at doing and what I think should be done is that they need um, more fundamental features that common people use every day, right? How do you deliver a first world experience to a third world platform? Is what I'm saying. So in the desktop world, when your Windows XP box ran out, it's sluggish. It's not all that great anymore. Typically, what people do is they drop Linux on there and they salvage the box.
Yeah,
How do you deliver that same experience to a feature phone?
and that was kind of the big thing. Like when technologies or software such as what was it, Asterisk came out for phone systems.
Hmm.
People were crazy. You know, they're getting like large machines or thinking that they need the large machines. And Asterisk is such a small program or lightweight program just to do phone calls and handling concurrent calls. I mean, you could do like eight plus concurrent calls on like an old P3 system. And that was back when they first came out, you know, or back when the software first came out. So those processors were still available, and you had like P4s and such were still available too, kind of like they were the previous generations at the time. And then so P3s were still available, and you could get a P3 box, a Pentium 3 box, and then you run a phone server off of that. And but that's kind of the big thing, to what you're saying, Mike, is you could just take Linux, drop it on there, and then now the box has 100 more uses, especially if it has virtualization technology, which has been around for what, six plus years.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's I think Asterix turned into what, Untangled?
No, Untangled, Untangled something different, but I believe it's included. Untangled is like an operating system platform where you can actually, it's like Clear OS where you can add modules, and Asterisk was just a module, but it's not really the same.
Okay. Answer that.
But Untangle is a resource hog, so I haven't used it in years. But that was back in the P4 days as well. You know, you had a P4 and it would Untangle would tax it, but it was it's I think it's gotten a little bit better over the years. I haven't used it for years. I use PFSense mostly.
Christian, you have anything you want to add to this?
I got nothing, man. I got nothing. Sorry.
All right. Yeah.
Someone talking because it sounds like it's breaking up.
It was me.
Oh,
It was me.
just you in the
Sorry.
background. Okay.
Let me give it a rest. Oh, you missed the joke. Terrible, terrible, young Grizzly.
What? Let me give it a rest. Like what? An API? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Does not compute.
Backslash.
Backslash. I used to have like I wanted to always make this company called Tree Star Systems, and the name, the meaning of the name, or the motto of the company was "at the root of everything."
Wow.
So, and that is a play on like the Linux environment having the root user. So then tree is the root, and then star is asterisk, so everything. So like at the root of everything. So tree star system. I never did it, but because there's no point in me like making that company and spending the money to get it LLC and all that. But I think I still have the domain. I don't know.
Well,
If not,
at the
I'm
very
sure
least,
somebody does now.
yeah, at the very least, hold on to the domain.
Yeah, I don't know if I have it anymore. That along with rigid networks, I never did anything with that. But something that is this open mic time? It is, right? I think we
No,
actually
no,
ended
no. I have one more thing I just wanted to post up,
Oh,
so I was just
I'll stop.
trying to get it together.
Okay.
So just go ahead and pass some time. If I understand you correctly, with that feature phone and a Facebook app, and then going out. So essentially, it's just doing the equivalent of just like a web browser, just going out to the application or to the software on the web, or does it have again a somewhat cached version of it on the phone, and as a user does does things to it on the phone, that data updates real time on the platform itself?
Can I
Which
answer
one?
this one?
Go right ahead, brother.
Um, so it's something that I touched on and I have to do more research on, and I haven't really gotten into it, but I mentioned it earlier. That would be considered what they call progressive web applications. Um,
PWA.
and yeah, PWAs. So with your PWAs, pretty much it's like a link on the desktops or on the screen of the phone or one of the home screens of the phone.
Hmm.
And with that, you don't so much actually connect to the application. You can do all the things within the application. Some things are not available. And then once you regain connection, it caches that information, like you're just mentioning, and then actually starts putting that on the or starts committing that to the platform,
Hmm.
committing changes, so on and so forth. So you can still run with it and do one or two things, and some data will become unavailable. But to the user, they can go, do whatever they need to. And then, so this is big for like, web-based data entry platforms. Again, the social media networks, like you're mentioning, um, and anything that requires the user to keep on working. So I see this a lot. Oh, I, I guess a comparison or a way to describe it is Google Docs and using Google Sheets in
Boom.
particular.
I was just about to ask you that if it was the same as when I'm on my Chromebook and it doesn't wait till I get connected again and then boop, it will sync up and link up. It's pretty much the same thing like that.
Right,
Yeah.
and you just said it. Yeah, so that's how I would describe it. Um, and I want to get more into that, and that's where things like Electron applications, which is another big thing I want to get into, because it just beautifies desktop applications in my eyes, makes it a lot easier, and it just brings the web standard to desktop applications,
Hmm.
and that's kind of like where I see PWAs being a big thing, or are a big thing, and again, like Mike mentioned earlier, you don't have to install the entire application. And that is a big deal on like, say, 2 phones ago for me, where you only had like 16 gigs of like actual storage space and the phone takes up 14. So 2 apps later, you're screwed, you know? So it's
Right,
a big
and
deal.
then you factor in. That's actually a good explanation, Gun Grizzly. Thank you. And you also factor in that these feature phones only have a gig of space.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at least 256 is made up of the OS itself,
Mm-hmm.
and and they don't multitask. So there's a dilemma there. So you don't want to overburden the phone with a very resource intense application. So that's where progressive web applications come into play. So I do see a lot of value in PWAs in terms of these emerging markets, especially Africa, if we're just focusing on Africa. 800 million to a billion users need to be online, by a certain time. I think in the initial video that we watched, Rwanda wants to be the tech 800-pound gorilla in Africa by 2020. It's 2019 now. They got 12 months to go. Um, where do we see ourselves in that area? Is the question. Let me just hit this one last piece that's not on the docket, which is dApps, so decentralized applications. Um, a new breed of applications is being discussed across the world. These types of applications are not owned by anyone, can't be shut down, and cannot have downtime. Such a new breed of applications are named dApps, decentralized applications. But before we discuss the apps, let's talk about the technology underlying dApps, which is called blockchain. Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency, introduced blockchain technology to the world. Bitcoin's blockchain is a globally distributed ledger which records transactions and is secured cryptographically via robust consensus mechanisms. But digital currency like Bitcoin, which has decentralized all aspects of money, is only one example of a dApp. Similarly, other dApps built on blockchain technology have opened up possibility of a newer and more exciting world. You might be thinking about what this new world is all about. Well, This new world is about making everything as decentralized as Bitcoin's blockchain did for money. What are DApps? Uh, dApps is pronounced as the same way as email is, where the D in DApps means decentralized. If an app doesn't meet, well, it is difficult to summarize dApps in a 1 to 2 line definition, as an application needs to have a specific set of characteristics in order to qualify as a dApp. If an app doesn't meet all these criteria, then it is not a dApp. One, open source. Source code of app is available to all. Two, decentralized, using a blockchain-like cryptographic technology. Three is incentive. App has crypto tokens, digital assets for fueling itself. Four, algorithm protocol, generates tokens and has an inbuilt consensus mechanism. So why I'm talking about this, you have these smartphones in Africa, or these emerging markets that need these sort of devices, and you're talking about connecting all these devices together. But how do you connect them together? Um, you're going to need some form of that. So that's why I brought that up. Lionel, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head in terms of having a understanding what a DApp is. Also, what DApps they allow the user their the front end or the graphical interface, and I'm saying that loosely. They're using these DApps to access the blockchain, whatever blockchain they're using, and whatever DApp they're using, whatever blockchain it's using. So that's what it is. They're using these things as a way to access that blockchain. That's why it's always said that crypto and Bitcoin, well, I said crypto and blockchain will not see mass adoption until the proliferation of dApps. So, to give an example, what one of the recent dApps that was it was a game. It was called Crypto Kitties, and people trade these cats around. These are digital cats around, but it was on the Ethereum blockchain, which means you record what it is, what you trade, whoever. Now transfer that to Africa, not the cats, but the dApps. So people in Africa want to transfer money or transfer, say, an African country, their government public records are on a blockchain, and you want to sell a used car. Well, you will access the government's records by using the DApp and say, well, I'm selling this car to such and such, and you fill out all the lines that the DApp is requiring you to fill out, and that way the government will would know who transferred what to who on what day, how much, and so forth. So they're like a way to access a blockchain. And now on top of that, but these dApps themselves provide a some dApps themselves are, I want to use the word priceless, but not that they're useful. They're very useful in their own use case.
All right, forgive me for saying this. So that would be kind of like blockchain for Craigslist, right?
Repeat that one more time.
That would be kind of like a blockchain for Craigslist, right?
Yeah, you can have a DApp for that.
I mean, like
Let's
if I was to
say,
sell my car or sell like a computer, I
yeah,
can say like, hey, I had this computer from this company. They gave it to me. I repurposed it and I sold it to blah blah blah.
mm-hmm. And
Okay.
we can even say Backpage. Remember, Backpage was popular. They shut it down because it was centralized. But what if it wasn't centralized? Well, it access a blockchain, and you would transfer funds through that, such as your laptop, such as that connected stove or or so forth, and say the government said, "Well, we want to shut this down," but you really can't because
Hmm.
it's decentralized. So people are going to continue to sell their used stoves, laptops, and so forth. So that's one of the benefits in terms of DApps.
And dApps come into play for these sort of feature phones, emerging type of phones, um, because it's open source. The platform is open source. There's a protocol. The protocol would be whatever it is, depending on what the application is, what the need is. And then you're talking about blockchain, right? We're using blockchain to actually make these transactions and lock down identities and things of that nature. For that matter, so that people's credentials are not being stolen and stuff like that. And then you're talking about tokenization, um, people using their phones, and you're talking about ride sharing services, ride hailing apps, e-scooters, these electric scooters that are starting to emerge now from companies like Bird and these other players. In Africa, this is going to be huge because people do a lot of walking, they do a lot of transit, utilizing these multiple levels of services, and you have these devices in their hands, and they want to make you want to make the return on investment as um, robust as possible. So now you have this device that's actually collecting these tokens because you took a ride, you use a ride hailing app or a ride sharing service, taxi, whatever it is, and they're collecting these tokens and things of that nature. So that's where my head is. That's why I brought all I had this hangout tonight. I wanted to put this into people's brains and understand that there's a big digital transformation happening in Africa right now.
Mm. Mhm. Yes, yes, and I agree.
Yep. Human capital is very valuable right now in Africa. So you got to think, um, like I said earlier, that African problems need African solutions. So we are not that far away from those people.
No, not at all.
This is open mic.
Sorry I got interrupted. But crap, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, I'll come back.
Now, I sent out an email today to the trust, and it stated how blockchain can be useful for government paperwork in terms of one of well, I'll put it like this. One of the examples was in some states you have to register to vote. Well, it was saying, well, why should you have to register to vote for your right as an American citizen? And what they pointed out was if your birth was recorded on the blockchain contract, and the moment you turn 18, wherever you go, it would immediately, once you voted, it would immediately know that hey, this person is 18 and they're an American citizen and they are eligible to vote because when your birth is recorded on the blockchain, you the blockchain knows that hey, you're an American citizen and all the details that needs to be known for you to vote. And also your birth certificate, death records, marriage records, divorce records. In today's climate, those things are very important. So taking that and applying it to the government would make I'll say governments, more effective. I want to get your takes on that.
Now, are we doing this from a mobile phone?
Yes, it actually can. It can. What they were saying that it can be done from a lot of the things can be done from mobile phone because instead of going to government buildings and say, I have to go to a branch of the government to pay a bill or so forth. You can actually access that from your mobile phone instead of going to them. governmental building.
Hmm.
So yeah, yes, it can be done on the mobile phone.
I think it'll make things a lot easier for especially millennials because like, all right, cool, I want to vote for something. At least their voice will be heard when they want to do it. And that's kind of the whole thing with voting. It's like, all right, cool, I have to get up and then I have to go over there and vote. It's kind of like, yo, this is a bit cumbersome, and I could have done this on, a Google form survey questionnaire. Like
Hmm.
I had to get out of bed and wait in line for this. Like
Yeah, and
a big
it's
thing for
good.
me, I don't even wait in line for food. I just hate waiting in lines. It doesn't make any sense anymore.
And it's interesting that you said it because going to these voting polls, and Mike, I just with the question. Yes, yes, you will be able to vote from your mobile device. It, uh, just going to these voting polls and waiting in line and going have to deal with the the irritation of registering to vote and filling this out, asking questions. Am I doing it right? That is a deterrent for a lot of people.
Yeah. And even just the annoyance of like what you can't. I think it. And again, I haven't voted in a while. Say what you will about that, but you know, from what I hear, you can't even bring your cell phones into the voting booth, right?
Right.
Um,
Which is
you can, but you're not supposed to. You could have it in your pocket, but you don't. You can't. I don't think you can actually have it out.
right, which is bullshit. So what if I wanted to look up what certain like I want to vote on every single law in there, but I haven't done like crazy research on it. Like, what if I wanted to research it beforehand, or not beforehand, but while I'm there? I know you can do that with your absentee ballots, but if I was doing my absentee ballot, then I wouldn't be at the voting booth. So it's like, what if I wanted to like get a better understanding of what I'm actually checking a box on this Scantron
Mhm.
for?
Hmm.
When
And
you,
that's
Like
I
I can
think
do that.
when you register early, because I registered early this year, there was they showed all the little local stuff that you could vote on, and
Mm,
state related stuff you could vote on. It was already there. Um,
okay.
you know, so I mean, I guess while you're waiting in that long line, because we had to wait in the rain, you could just pull out the phone and check it off. Then I definitely wouldn't wait till you get in the booth to go ahead and do it, because that's just gonna be holding up the rest of the line.
and
Yeah,
speaking of waiting
exactly.
in line,
True.
people have to take off their work just to go um, do these things. It's commonly called vote day. So you have to take off work, miss income that you can have just to go vote. And not only that, but by the time you vote, it's 6 o'clock in the evening. Could have been home by now. It's cold. It's raining. You're irritated. You have to deal with people that you rather not be around. People, just the whole the whole the everything else that goes with it. So that takes all of that out of the equation. It makes something that should be easy and you want to do actually makes people want to go vote.
Hmm.
And for those that are listening, excuse my crazy or my extreme laziness in regarding this matter. Like I'm not lazy in other things, but this just seems like it's a hassle.
It is.
Again, I mean, this isn't directed, to anybody, but yeah, I mean, it gets. I mean, if you don't plan to vote, and you try to do it at the last minute, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be a burden. It's gonna be cumbersome. It's gonna be an irritant. It's gonna be a distraction, and all those things. So, I mean, there are several workarounds again, from early voting to mailing it in to Um,
Right.
I mean, if it's important, you just do it. I mean,
Well,
if
but
it's
that's the
important,
thing though. Like, yeah,
you
it's important, but like you can also make improvements in this area.
You can.
And the
Yes.
reason, like, it's like there's no good, even though like my laziness aside, there's no good reason for this to be this hard or for me to go through all that just to vote. Like I
Okay.
can do it from
I,
my
I,
phone. Like it's just like
look,
I'm
let me
using.
just go. Let me just go and throw an analogy out there.
Mhm.
It's a bigger pain in my ass to catch a plane. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to me, that's a much bigger pain in the ass catching a flight.
Okay, I can understand that, but when you have like for instance, when you bought a car, maybe like say 10 years ago or so,
Mhm.
you had to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork, so on and so forth. The
Mhm.
last time I bought a car, probably like 3 4 years ago, um, a lot of this stuff was DocuSigned,
Mhm.
and I just put in like my initials at the beginning
Mhm.
and did whatever on that, and then just I can do fill in all, like so these are the things that when you start seeing improvements in other areas like that, you really start to look at things like voting or anything else where you're like, hey, why is this process so long? Like even waiting in the line at Walmart, like who does that anymore? Like I'm going to the self checkout area.
So
I would,
yeah, I mean,
I
and
would,
then what you also have to factor in is, for lack of a better phrase, is this is the threshold of security required. To go ahead and catch it. There will never, I don't anticipate there'll ever be a day unless you go ahead and fly private. And even if you do fly private, you still have to go through, some type of, security and get held up a little bit. But you'll never just be able, albeit technology, unless you got your own plane and you can jump on it, to just walk through an airport, get on a plane, and just, even if you have 8 mobile phones on you, that's just not going to happen. And
Well,
the
we've
same,
already
yeah,
well, two things to
and
that. Two,
improvements have already
look,
been made on that though too.
well,
yeah.
well,
So I mean, but again, still to this day, it takes more time for some folks to get on the damn plane, than it does the whole plane flight in and of itself. And that's starting from walking into the airport. Take more time to actually get on the damn plane than it does the flight of the day that you're going to actually be on the plane. But that's because of the security that's required. And the same thing goes with voting. I'm not saying voting is the same level of security as getting on an airplane with a bunch of other people. But you can't you can't compare apples to apples and say voting should be as easy as a self checkout in Whole Foods, where I could just walk in there and just walk out with a sandwich.
Well,
well,
It's
two,
no.
I
two
can't
things
say
to
that
that. I
in
would say
voting
this
it can be.
that
I'll go after Linda.
two things. If you own shares in a company that allows its shareholders to vote, you would get a proxy vote through the brokerage that you purchased the shares from. So you will receive an email, hey, X corporation wants you to vote on these stipulations. So you will vote. Now, that brokerage know that you own those stocks because your identity is verified through their brokerage. Now, what you is is a good point. Now, in terms of putting voting on the blockchain, people will have verifiable identities on the blockchain. They will go to a location, a building, and verify their identity with that government. So how Young Grizzly said when he purchased a car, everything was signed through DocuSign. Now they they know who you are, and therefore you would get a something that can verify that only you would have your identity, along with other things that will verify your identity, and you would go vote on a blockchain such as that. You just wouldn't pull out your phone, go to a website, and say vote, and then do the same thing 6 or 7 more times on different cell phones. No, you will vote under your verified.
If I know that you dropped.
Hello? No, no.
You said vote under verified. Last thing I
Yeah.
heard.
Oh well, I said you will vote. You will access whoever owns the right to host whatever blockchain, private blockchain owns the right to host that voting for that year.
Hmm.
People who want to vote on the blockchain, they will have a verified identity through the government. Therefore, you would use that verified identity to access that voting blockchain to vote. And you will only be able to vote once. There'll be no questions or, oh, this person is a legal alien. We don't know. So that's how that's the security in voting on a blockchain. You just wouldn't pull out a phone and just vote and vote and vote. You will have to do it under a verified identity.
Well, I can see the flaws in my lazy argument. But I will say this: the voting system as it is now is antiquated and could be better. And something as simple as digitizing it or making it available via a secure mobile app or what have you is not really that uncalled for, and should be something that should be easily implemented um, in the sense of putting it out there, and then of course after that the security implications of it all is kind of the next big thing. Maybe even like having an application that's only say you have like RFID chips or what have you, or specialized wireless network, and you get within certain amount of feet of this wireless network or access it, do whatever you want to, go to facial recognition. My phone has a fingerprint reader on it on my new phone that I just got like a couple months ago. And it's the greatest thing because now I don't have to enter my passwords going into my bank accounts. I just use the biometric scanner, even for my credit union application. So it's like things like that, improvements are being made, and those improvements can be made even with voting or in terms of voting for our government or things in our government. So
In
I'm sorry
Europe,
if my
in Europe, in Europe, they actually use electronic voting, so you can actually vote online. So the idea that that would never fly in the United States, it's already been proven that it works in the European Union.
right. And then what about counting and accounting, or auditing, I should say. So counting the votes and then auditing them after the fact. You have those are just numbers that are going to be crunched fairly easily. And if you start running filters or start running, I don't know, maybe say something like voting heuristics. So you can start seeing patterns in fraudulent voting. Like that'll be a lot easier to do on a digital platform.
Facebook has a patent for that, for voting. So in the
Oh,
United States, so they've applied for a patent to actually utilize Facebook for actual political voting. So they have 2 billion users. I think they have just about everybody in the United States that they can get who's of voter age.
right.
So there's a possibility that they could leverage their system as infrastructure for the federal government.
But
Voting.
well, unfortunately, Facebook isn't in any position to even think about standing up and making that case because of the current problems that they have with privacy and security breaches. But something else that came to mind, and this is not to knock the argument, make this a debatable thing as far as the whole voting thing is. I mean, I would honestly like them to see, to make the case and and to have to try to go ahead and bring it forward, and to go ahead and see if it works. I know that, I mean, you hear on, in the real world, I mean, just recently folks were, tripping about saying, hey, we can't even get IDs to go ahead and vote. So now, these folks who couldn't get IDs to vote and say, hey, if you require us to have an ID, that you need to cash your check or that you need to open an account, that you need to do anything to function, that's discriminatory. But then now we're telling these folks you need to have an RFID chip with biometrics and a blockchain account on this, that, and the other. I just don't see how that dog is going to hunt if
Like
they can't even get an ID. Again.
replace
All right.
RFID with email, and you'll see that it's an eventuality in a sense. You know,
Well,
like like
no,
replace it with email. Like people saw it the same way, but now like with email, you see where that's like it happened eventually. Like people move towards it.
Yeah, but again, I'm just saying, if we just isolate it to the one thing, as far as I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say you can pay your taxes online, but you can't vote to the IRS, which is the major
Oh
agency.
yeah,
So
and that's
you have to
expensive.
think. You have to think that if you can pay taxes online, and if I remember correctly, Mastercard actually has a patent in place for voting as well through their Mastercard network. So there's the infrastructure is there, the development is there. It's the unwillingness of the people that is not, that is not, readily available. Go ahead.
Again, if we're talking about the voting thing, just recent history on the ground in the real world, folks was tripping about that they couldn't even get IDs, but then now we want them to just 10x their ability to show and prove who they are overnight, and they couldn't even get IDs.
Yeah, but which people are we talking about? Are we still talking about millennials, or are we talking about like boomers and Xers?
No, we're talking about voting Americans.
Yeah, but like what age group?
Well, whichever age group comprise the people that we're saying that is discriminatory to be asked to show ID to go ahead and vote.
Yeah, but like that age group, I'm making an assumption at this point. Those were older people.
Yeah, well, like let me ask that. I mean,
and then conspiracy theories possibly too, but
yeah,
that's just being rude.
Did you were you privy to that? I mean, I can't do a deep dive on it, but were you aware that there was that narrative like for the last 10 years?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can't give you
I
like
can only
a really good summation of it, but yeah. There was a big shit show, man. With folks saying yeah. I mean, and it's just in what just wasn't grandma rolling up in her stroller with her glasses, because grandma has ID. Grandma has ID, grandpa they have ID, they have to do the Medicare, they've got ID. Seniors are very conservative. I mean, not conservative as far as political thing, but they got their shit together.
Well, I'm thinking the people that you're even talking about, and again, I'm like you,
folks
but that
who
sounds
don't
like
have their
middle
shit
America.
together.
Yeah, well, no, that sounds like middle America, because if you get into a metropolitan area,
folks who don't have their shit together.
Yeah, but if you get into a metropolitan area, that like
again,
that's not a problem even.
Again, I wish I could help you out and give you more detail, but you should definitely check it out, and you may be surprised to find out where all the noise and the humbug was coming from. I wouldn't guess. I mean, I would. It's okay to guess. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but if you're unaware, which you said you haven't heard anything about it, check it out, and you may be surprised where all that noise was coming from, saying that it's that we're being discriminated against because you guys are asking us to actually show ID to prove that we are who we are. That ain't right.
Well, I think this hangout is kind of, I know it's open mic right now, but I think we're kind of focused more on African solutions for African problems with these smart devices, feature-based devices, and the blockchain and decentralized applications and cloud computing. So when it comes to, say that again.
It still connects, because the problems that we're facing now, or that he's even bringing up now, is definitely going to be the case for your what's it called? Your Africans, or people in the African continent that are deeper inland, that are not technologically advanced or farther away from the coast, and that's usually always the case because, of course, the coast is the meeting spot between nations. So I definitely think it will affect them as well.
Right, but what I'm saying here is that I don't think that Middle America is the same as middle, in the DRC, right? I think they have different issues. And the question is, how do you leverage the technology to fix those issues over there, rather than to worry about whether or not people in America have an ID, to show up at the booth. I'm trying to figure that part out.
My bad.
Just have it. Yeah.
My bad.
And but even with IDs though, that just has to do with registration with your local government or municipality. And that's kind of the thing that's the only part where I'm like, all right, cool. I could see the case for like not wanting that, because you want to have some level of privacy and anonymity and separation from you and the government, but you already know how that works. The government doesn't want that, and they have the guns.
Hello?
I know you were going to say something. I think Lionel dropped off. Yeah.
One
So
thing. Oh,
I had an article that I wanted to bring up that just showed up in my email a few minutes ago. This one is from the blockchaincouncil.org. Facebook may launch a cryptocurrency for WhatsApp. We were just talking about WhatsApp on feature phones. Social media giant Facebook is one of the most successful internet companies in the world right now, with over 2 billion registered users and over $40 billion in revenue, in some unnamed sources. Bloomberg recently reported that Facebook is developing its cryptocurrency for its subsidiary WhatsApp. A cryptocurrency backed by Facebook could finally bring cryptocurrencies to the mainstream world because of the exposure generated. Let's take a look at how Facebook might implement cryptocurrencies and how big the market for such a cryptocurrency would be. Facebook acquired WhatsApp in 2014 for $19 billion, making it Facebook's largest acquisition to date. Soon after the purchase, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced that the WhatsApp acquisition was in line with Facebook's Internet.org vision. According to Zuckerberg, the goal is to develop a group of basic internet services that would be free of charge to use. At the time of the acquisition, WhatsApp was the most popular internet messaging platform with over 600 million users. As of Q3 2018, WhatsApp has reportedly surpassed 1.5 billion registered users. The service is particularly popular in countries like India, where iMessage is uncommon, with an estimated 200 million users in India alone. Interestingly enough, India also leads the world in remittances, with close to $70 billion sent home to India in 2017, according to the World Bank estimate. Facebook's history with blockchains. Facebook has been one of the leading tech giants to explore blockchain technology over the years. In fact, earlier this year, Facebook created a blockchain unit during its internal restructuring to assess how blockchains can be useful for the company. Facebook's blockchain unit is being headed by David Marcus, who has previously worked as the president of PayPal and vice president of Messenger at Facebook. This shows that Facebook is serious about using blockchain as a payment network that could work across devices and platforms. Two recent reports at the World Intellectual Property Organization revealed that Facebook is, in fact, working on a payment processing and authentication, two of blockchain strong suits. According to the report, Bloomberg, Facebook is more likely to launch a stable coin instead of a volatile cryptocurrency like Ethereum or Bitcoin. Stable coins are a type of cryptocurrency whose price is linked to a fiat currency like a US dollar or an Indian rupee. This would be crucial for users who are going to use this service for sending remittances back home, as the volatility traditionally associated with cryptocurrencies would be quite counterproductive for these users. Concerns about centralized cryptocurrency. When the news about a possible stablecoin cryptocurrency first emerged on the internet, many of the big players in the cryptocurrency world showed apprehensiveness at the idea of a centralized company using blockchain brand to boost its revenue. What remains to be seen is exactly how decentralized this rumored cryptocurrency is going to be. If users can join the network as miners at will, people's fears are going to be allayed, since it would single a decentralized architecture. Facebook has a lot of experience navigating the regulatory waters of various regions, and that is something that would be crucial to the usability of the stablecoin. People would need to be assured that they are in full control of their digital assets and not simply owners of a tokenized security that is ultimately controlled by Facebook. If executed properly, Facebook's cryptocurrency project can be beneficial to millions of users worldwide and really simplify cross-border payments. In any case, a cryptocurrency that would be open to Facebook's user base of over 2 billion users worldwide would definitely be positive for the adoption of cryptocurrencies. What do you guys think of this?
This is like Cash App what's it called? In a messaging platform, like, the messaging platform, or having these messaging platforms that allow you to actually do voice and video call, or video and voice calls, as well as text messages. Um, like I use WhatsApp with my customers just to do remote sessions in some cases where they have no connection, or no good connection to their computer, but they want to show me something, and we have to do a video conference or something like that. So it's great. So then you start adding money to it. It's no more sending MoneyGram or any of those other industries. Those things are going to dry up with this. And it's pretty much the natural progression of something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cash App is beautiful for like when I have to collect rent at my salon. I have to, I go on Fridays to collect any cash, and nobody really gives me cash on that day. And what I do is I give until Sunday to send me all the money via Cash App. Some people send it Monday or Tuesday or whatever, which is fine, but at least they send it, and I don't have to drive down there, even though it's like 20-30 minutes from my house to the salon. I don't have to drive down there. I don't have to do anything. My phone's in the other room, and I hear cash register sound like a ka-ching on my phone. It's like, oh, money came. So think about that with WhatsApp, and sending that, to your, in my case, family in Jamaica, to send them anything. It's like, that's really beautiful.
Green?
Yeah. If this is Facebook doesn't have the social equity to make this work. Facebook can't make this work because they have trust issues, and the trust factor with them is it's pretty much in the shitter, and it's never coming back out. That's why sometimes I submit some articles that show how consumers feel about their data, just generally speaking, and it's pretty much and the majority of people are becoming more and more sensitive to who has their data, and they wish to be, kind of forgotten after they get done dealing with somebody. So, and Facebook is like worse. It's like the worst one of them all. So, there's absolutely no way. I mean, it's a cool thing, it's a cool idea, but there's absolutely no way that Facebook can make this work. No way. It's impossible.
I know.
Flying out there. So might be something going on. I submit to you human behavior and the fickleness and short-mindedness, or the short memory span of the human psyche. The people that use Facebook don't care. Like, they, I want to say that with confidence, only because if you start saying these things around, like, strike up a conversation with somebody that you just randomly meet, in a sense, if you can actually do that, right? Like, if they're willing to talk to you, like, what you start to see is people like, oh, I didn't even know that. And that's, I want to say, is more Americans. Even I know about, what's going on with Zuckerberg, and what's happened on his visit to Capitol Hill, and how that was publicized. But there's just a lot of people that don't freaking care. And what they'll see is the Facebook brand on it, and they'll fuck with it. And then also, that's just in the US. Like, people in Jamaica don't care.
And that's interesting that you mentioned Jamaica, because in Jamaica, I think you have to pay extra using WhatsApp on your phone, right? To send messages.
Yeah, you have to pay the carrier. It's an added service.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's the, I think we were talking, you had mentioned it, an application layer gateway,
Yes.
and that's what they have on their service itself.
Hmm. And this all comes in into play when we talk about cloud computing, emerging devices, feature devices, these turnkey smartphones, so to speak. There's a whole market for this, and we're not really partaking in this for whatever reason. I think it's a shame that so many black people, especially black men, are not even having these conversations, which is why I want to have this conversation tonight.
Yeah, like, even back to what Preem said, like, I think you're totally right about that. Like, hey, to you and I, or to a few, their reputation's in the shitter. But then I start to talk to people about more advanced things, not even so much advanced, but just abstract thoughts. And people are like, yeah, I didn't even know that, and I'm not talking about the Facebook thing because I haven't really talked about that specifically, but, just other instances of like conversations that you're having with people, like, hey, talking about the monetary system, talking about people are still going out buying houses and stuff like that right now, even though you hear so many like reports about a looming debt crisis, the Carmageddon, um, uh, dealing with shoot, oh, man, what is it? Not just Carmageddon, but dealing with school loans. People dying in debt, school loan debt, even.
Hmm.
It's crazy. So
So like for instance, like something like the retail sector, they will do a survey to get, consumer sentiment, how consumers feel about this, how they feel about that, about their buying choices, if it's millennials, if it's Generation Zs, if it's boomers, if it's Xers, if it's males, females, if it's, to just get a feel of the general public. So, and again, a lot of these, most all of the data out there, and it's completely agnostic. It's not saying how do you feel about Twitter, how do you feel about Facebook, how do you feel about this, how do you feel about that. It's like, okay, your privacy issues. How do you feel? How do you feel about being tracked online? How do you feel about being targeted to? And the overwhelming majority of consumers who are randomly surveyed, when asked, not just somebody that I could just meet walking down the store or whatever, which will give me some type of anecdotal information. And it could be accurate in some instances, but if Facebook is going after a broad market, then you do one of these surveys, you want to get like a broad swath of people, black, white, Puerto Rican, Haitian, male, female, midget, tall, whatever, and just ask them these kind of kind of general questions. How do you feel about this, that, and the other? And they get that feedback, and they get those feedback loops, And right now, today, and again, not to be specific to Facebook, that's what I said. Overwhelming majority of people, they have a big issue with privacy and with their data, with their personal information, and again, this is not talking specifically to Facebook, but when you put Facebook in the picture, it's hella worse. Like Facebook, it can't even make this. I mean, how is Facebook going to make this shit fly in Europe? With all the shit they're going through now in Europe with GDPR and all the lawsuits they have over there, Facebook can't make this work. I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not saying it's not brilliant. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but I promise you, there's no way that Facebook can make this work. They can't make this work. Because they just don't have the social equity. But Mike, we said earlier you wanted to bring some of these topics up because what is it exactly that you would like to see? And you've probably said it 2 or 3 times, but that you would like to see more blacks or more black males doing in this field, in this sector, or attempting to do or taking an initiative on,
Well, we live in a first world country. I mean, you I think you put a lot of emphasis behind the power of this flag in this country, and what I hear what I hear on YouTube is just brothers talking about R. Kelly, just just things that I can't believe that when I look at a video like we looked at initially on the first item on the docket. You have Africans that are sitting in poverty building multi-million-dollar platforms, and they're not even blinking. So what are we doing to actually, empower ourselves either here or there? But why is that? Why is there that conversation? When I go through the YouTube streets, I don't hear that conversation being had. That
These YouTube
frustrates.
streets.
Yes, I feel like we live in the suburbs over here in the Brain Trust.
Snob in the suburbs of Snobville. Um, shout out to Snob Life. Uh, so one thing that during my travels in these YouTube streets, the YouTube Serengeti, if you will, because there's a jungle out there, um, is that I see a lot in terms of uh, different countries doing the things that are being proposed by a lot of cryptocurrencies. One in particular, XLM, Stellar Lumens. And Stellar Lumens, one of the things that they were advertising or talking about a lot is doing mobile banking. Uh, and in terms of mobile banking, they meant like actually having a truck that goes out to remote areas so people can do banking.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay, well that's kind of crazy. And of course they were talking about it in on the African continent. So you can have all these people do banking and banking come to them in their rural areas or their remote areas so that they can actually um, transact uh, in this banking system that everyone else is on board. And then just the other day, I watched a documentary, and I don't know if it's somebody sent it to me, sent it to us, sent it to the group, but in the documentary, it talked about this was happening in Germany and the amount of people not having money um, in rural areas. Lionel, did you send that? Oh, I don't think Lionel's here, so. But I think there was a video that was sent out just the other day in the emails, and it was talking about this is happening in Germany, where people are, a lot of people are pushing for a cashless society. And some people are saying, hey, we don't mind cashless, but we don't mean completely cashless. And one of the things was in small towns in Germany, there's this one lady, she was like, I never thought I would be driving around. We were opening up branches all over the place. I never thought that I would be driving a van with an ATM attached to the side.
Hmm.
So you're seeing things like that happening even in the quote unquote first world country. Again, in the what would be the equivalent to flyover country in the U.S., but these small towns that are now almost disconnected, and they're younger. The younger people have moved to the cities and such. So there's no bank. There's not a lot of banking that goes on there. So some people with trying to be a cashless with trying to be a cash based society and using their local Deutschmarks or what have you, they actually have to go to the local pub and draw out money using the debit feature on their card, make a small purchase, and then the guy says, hey, I give you €2 or two Deutschmarks or what have you. Like things like that are happening in your first world countries, in your remote area or your rural backwater areas, if you will. you know. And when I say rural backwater, they have the latest Mercedes there. Like
Or the latest F-150 pickup.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Oh,
So
stay, can you see, Preem?
so it's like these things are these things that Bitcoin is trying, or not Bitcoin, but cryptocurrencies that are trying to solve in these emerging countries. These are issues that are actually being solved or being solved the same way, even in your first world countries. So that's kind of like the whole complex system of it all. Like, you're seeing where these emerging nations are coming up and they need these services. And then you're also seeing where the nations that should be at the top or are at the top are closing out or cutting the fat and trimming the fat and getting rid of their smaller markets and making them almost like second and third world countries in a sense,
Now,
in terms of banking.
are those mobile banking platforms? Are they armored or are they unarmored?
I'm not sure. When you see the van, it wasn't like I don't know if I was watching it in my car. I think I was watching it maybe while I was driving, so I couldn't like look down much or anything. Um, and actually, I was listening to it, and I would see it at the stoplight. So, you can't really. I think they're like converted Sprinter vans. Short answer.
Okay, that
You know, and
that sounds right.
yeah, and so like, what's the armament of those vans? If anything, they're just probably better shocks in the back to handle the weight of the ATMs. Better suspension, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Cream, you were going to say something?
Yeah, well, yeah, two things. One on the one had to do with your question. The other one had to do with I hate to hit the rewind button, but we were talking about, so hypothetical question, would you be okay, this for anybody on the panel, specifically like Lionel, but he's not here, with folks purchasing a firearm via a mobile device on the blockchain and just having it shipped to me?
I think that's going to be the way going forward. I think that's going to be the way going forward. It not so much about transparency, but more about securing the what they call that CCL FFL, right? Is it or the FFA, Federal Firearms and God, what's the acronym for that? But basically, so that it gives a secure identity between you as the registered gun owner and the federal government in real time. I think those sort of functions actually play into what is necessary, because what you have right now is a decoupled market where you have guns that are not being recorded as being a purchase and being lost, and you see what's happening in Chicago, where gun trafficking is at an all-time high, and why you see so many incidents per firearm out there in Chicago as opposed to other areas. Just lack of secure implementation of a registry.
Federal Firearms License is what
FFL,
the
right?
FFL stands for. Yeah, that's what that stands for.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's it.
yeah, that's mostly for, you have your licensed distributors for firearms.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do any type of transaction of firearms across state lines, you have to actually do it through a registered FFL entity, broker, organization. So if I wanted to buy something off of Guns America and then have it shipped, you have to have it shipped from one FFL to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way and of course, and it's crazy because one of my AR-10 actually came through at UPS. It's just funny.
Right.
But that's how it happens. Like it has to go through it has to go through those channels just to make sure that they see the transfer of one firearm to the next, and then it goes from run. Then you have to, of course, go through your local registration in terms of background checks and so on and so forth.
So I mean, but it would be okay. I mean, the day is coming, and then this will be a good thing if I just get out the house and in my F-150 and say, you know what, I think I want to buy a gun today. Drive by a gun store, like, hey, I want to buy a gun today, and just walk in there, pull up something on my phone, hand it to them, and in 5 minutes I'll walk out with an AR-15, AR-10, AR-50, whatever,
QR code.
AR-200, whatever. With that day is coming, and that's a good thing, right? Where I could just walk in there and in 5 minutes by just hitting the phone, blockchain, this, that, and the other, verify ID instantly, boom, I walk out.
Yeah,
that's
pretty much where we're going.
Okay.
That's being hindered though. That's been artificially hindered.
Right.
Because you see that with the what is it, the tax stamps, and I think is it the FTA tax stamps? I forgot the actual acronym for it. But if you wanted to get a tax stamp and you want to get a silencer, and a lot of silencer companies or manufacturers, they've actually gone through and try to aid the ATF. That's it. They try to aid the ATF into making their their procedures a lot more streamlined. And what happens is they literally have to go through paperwork, and they make them do that, which is the BS portion of it. And again, this even goes in towards where a lot of technology is artificially suppressed in government. And that goes even into voting in some cases. But for voting, it's understandable because of security. But I guess so with ATF as well, because you can kill people with guns, and you can kill people silently with silenced guns. But that's kind of the big thing. That they put in a QR code system to make things a lot faster to deal with paperwork. They put in a system where you would do almost like a DocuSign or a PDF form and have things registered, to the point where you can only access this network through the FFL. Having things like a station at the FFL that only they can register and sign in, and then sign off on your actual application to make it even faster and easier. Otherwise, you have to go in and sign the paperwork by hand and do everything there. But they have all this information. And to what you just said, Preem, about walking out in a short period of time, you can already do that once, especially in Florida. Once you're a concealed carry license holder, then you can actually walk in and walk out with the gun in the same day. And even at my arms dealer, I took a picture of me filling out the form. So next time I go and fill out the form, I say, hey, listen, has anything really changed? They'll be like, no. And I just go off the picture and fill out the form exactly the same way. And that's how I do it. And then I get out even faster. And that's kind of like my life hack into just buying guns and getting out faster in the same day.
Okay. And to your to that first question, Mike, is as far as in the on the YouTube streets and their interest or lack thereof, again, it's just I don't know. There's you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And sometimes some folks will take things up for one or two reasons: inspiration or desperation. And if it's just not in them yet, when it does get in them, they'll go ahead and move forward and take an interest in it. But I mean, the best you can do is the best that can be done in the meantime is just to keep the lights on for them, so that when they are ready to make that move or to come aboard, they absolutely will. But and again, that's why I was really stoked about the folks in Africa, because I mean, just like India, I mean, they're just they're hungry. They're hungry. And that's why I've got zero sympathy for when folks say these folks come over here and they do this. It comes just down to they just want it more. They hustle, they work, they do what they have to do. It's competition, and sometimes there may be some horseplay or some shenanigans going on, but that's few and far between. That's an insignificant minority, of them. But for the most part, it's just you just get outworked or pretty much get out hustled. And if and yeah, it's sounding the alarm right now, because if folks don't get especially with what just looking at the little snippets of that documentary, I mean, if they're doing that over there, I mean, if those folks, if they can get a chance to get over here, even if they want to come over here, they may not even want to come over here no more, because they will be having shit popping so well over there. But if they can come over here, they're gonna hit the ground running. And it's like folks won't have an excuse. It's like, what's your excuse now? I mean, I could probably ask you how many points LeBron put up last week, or this, that, and the other. And of course, I do trick off my own set of time. I fuck up my time, but I kind of schedule it. What I'm saying? All my trick off time, this and whatever. And I'm not saying I'm infallible, because I have to, check in with myself and, say, is this congruent with what my stated ambitions are? Yes or no, whatever. And then, if you ain't move forward, if no, correct. But a lot of folks don't do that, don't know how to do that, don't know that they need to do that. And like you said, we're into a stage now where, you can't call these folks, booty scratchers anymore, because, they're over there. They're actually doing it, man. They're actually doing it.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm bashing anybody. I'm putting emphasis behind all of this because everybody is moving to a more nationalist agenda. Russia is a superpower, despite what the media tries to tell you. They are a superpower. Um, China is number one in artificial intelligence. We covered an article on this. The United States is lagging behind. Um, India is a IT superpower. They are very dominant in information technology. Estonia has made their transition between 2008 to 2014 to be a digital, a completely digital country. Um, we talked about Malta, basically leading the European Union in terms of um, blockchain and digital transformation. Um, you're also starting to see this now with Africa. I mean, they only covered 3 countries out of the 55, but the point I'm making is that they are also looking at the same thing. Rwanda in the video said that they want to be an IT superpower in Africa by 2020. That's only 12 months away. So, this is where we are. And if you're not having these conversations, if you're not having these complex conversations, you can't have innovative ideas because innovative ideas come from complex conversations and dialogue. And unfortunately, go ahead.
And speaking about that, I mean, another thing here is just, people here are just, they're spoiled. I mean, let me not say people. I'll say we, are spoiled, and we take for granted, all the luxuries that we have, and we want more. And people over there are looking over here like, man, what the hell are you tripping about? You guys are living lash and leather. And, if you got people where you're crying, oh, I'm poor, I'm this, that, whatever, and you're living better than 90 or 95% of the people in the world. I'll give you a story. I was at one of my homies' a New Year's Eve party. My business partner, Dominican cat, and he had this guy from Bosnia was there. And this guy was telling the story. He's like, man, when I was 10, 11 years old, man, walking down the street, picking up, soldier boots and throwing it back in a pickup truck with the soldier's legs still in it, picking up bodies. Like,
God dang.
Yeah, 11 years old. He said we used to put out plastic put out plastic sheets to catch the rain to have water to drink. And that's where he came from, and this was a white guy from Bosnia at a Spanish house party. And this guy speaks like 2 languages. He said, when I came to America, I could only say two words. I could only say two phrases, hello and fuck you, and he taught himself English, and he speaks Spanish with the best of them. I mean, he's got him a Spanish lady, Spanish family, this time, whatever, which is one of his families, but, self-made, and that's where he came from, so, I thought I had a doggone, so I know I don't, but it's shit like that, and when a guy like that or in places like that, they have opportunity, and now with technology and, all the stuff being exported over here to say, hey, put your mind to this. Can you make something? Can you come up with something, create something? They're hungry, man, because they come from real poverty, real hardship, and, they're going to work their tails off while you have people over here taking for granted, all the luxuries that we have.
Well, also in their own country, they don't even have to leave to actually take advantage of that hunger mindset. You see a lot of cryptocurrency projects that are actually going to these countries that are impoverished, or in some cases, really just they have more relaxed banking systems just to make progress now that they want to make into the future. One of the big ones is IOHK, which is the driving force behind Cardano, ADA. And they also work with Ethereum Classic, ETC. And what they've done is gone to places in the Caribbean islands to actually make strides in terms of developing their cryptocurrencies and actually use them in real world applications. Again, Cardano goes a little bit slower in some cases, but they're probably one of the more well organized cryptocurrencies that I've seen out there that release a lot of information about what they're doing and updates, and going more into, they're like a developer's cryptocurrency. So people, more developers like them, I would say, um, from what I've seen, like as far as like, people that are commenting on their videos and things like that. But the point is, they're going to these places. So these people from the first world are going to people in the third world or second world in developing countries, and they're meeting people that are willing to, or that hungry, and they don't even have to leave where they are. They're staying right there and developing and growing the infrastructure, growing the culture right there in that area. And of
Mhm.
course, you're seeing that in even just the first video that Mike put up about Africa's growing digital business. Like, they're there. It's just, is anyone there to quote unquote recognize them, or even utilize them, or give them the exposure that they would actually like?
Mhm. Yeah, greatly said. Greatly said. I wanted to have this hangout just because this is a very high growth market. The Africom Kai OS article or item that was on the docket completely says in the very beginning that 2019 is going to be the breakout year for digital services on feature phones and emergence of feature phones in Africa. Well, what more do I need to say?
Yeah, I mean, it'll speak for itself in time, like while we're talking about this, even like projects that I've started myself, it's like, nobody's waiting on me. There's people out there that are doing this with far less. Just what you showed with the phones and how they're doing it with feature phones, which were the phones that I had maybe, or which was the phone that I had maybe when I came out of college or stopped going to college, I should say, in what, 2006? And that was 12 years ago now. No, 13. No, 13 years ago now. So it's like, these phones are there, or these phones are what we had in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and now these countries are using them. They're more advanced, or have a little bit more processing power, kind of along the same lines, but now they're doing all the stuff that we would see in these more advanced. They're merging them, to cut it short. They're merging the advancements that we see now, and they're merging it with the older technology, and it's working.
Mm-hmm. Let me share my
You see,
screen. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, really quick. And that right there was $1 million phrase that surmised a lot when that was said, that people are doing it, or well, shit, they're getting it done with a whole lot less. That's the truth. That's the reality, and that's also the scary part of it. Not scary for me, but that's just the scary part of folks who aren't, taking, heed, is that folks are actually doing it slash getting it done with far less. You know, so while other folks are kind of waiting on a perfect storm to happen or for everything to be right, cats are doing it with far less.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
I'll keep it plain. I'll keep it clean for the brain trust, but yeah, you can play around if you want to, you know, but it's happening.
Yes. Let me I think you might have missed this yesterday, young Grizzly, but we
Mm-hmm.
discussed electronium.
Oh, yeah, that's I'm setting that up for another buy. Go ahead. Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
hear this. Thank you.
So we covered this. Electronium is a blockchain based payment platform designed specifically for use on mobile devices like smartphones. It's claimed to
Mm-hmm.
be the first know your customer and anti money laundering compliant cryptocurrency. ETN, Electronium's native crypto, is virtually mined using mobile devices. But here we are tonight talking about mobile devices, digital services. This plays
Mm-hmm.
right into the discussion.
It makes more sense too. Oh, I'll let you finish.
Mhm. Let me just get to this right here. ETN is mined using the kryptonite proof of work algorithm. Other kryptonite coins include Monero, Bitcoin, and Carbo. I've never heard of Carbo before. ASIC mining is a big deal in the kryptonite community, as the coins were initially designed to use ASIC resistant CPU mining. While Monero pulled away from ASIC mining rigs by adapting the kryptonite algorithm, Electronium forked to bring them back. Litecoin also released a statement that ASIC mining will continue being supported through 2018. ETN can also be virtually mined using a mobile phone. This system runs a virtual ETN miner on your mobile device and airdrops ETN based on your device specs. It's not actual mining, and instead more of an intro to mining and improve a concept of its gaming idea. Let me just get you under the hood. All right. Just need to go through the summary. Um, Electronium is a blockchain-based financial platform aiming to be the leading mobile payment provider. It has it has a mobile-first direction and partnerships that reflect its lofty goals of bringing cryptocurrency to underdeveloped markets in Africa and South America. If Electronium succeeds, it'll be due to these key features. Electronium is based on the Monero privacy coin code. It hard forked from Monero to separate itself from Monero's war on ASIC mining. ETN is CPU or ASIC mined using kryptonite algorithm. Mobile devices virtually mine using Electronium app, which doesn't process the blockchain and acts as a marketing airdrop. Electronium is focused on mobile gaming and mobile payment markets to allow the unbanked and underbanked to earn and spend money through a mobile device. With these pieces in place, Electronium built a viable blockchain network. Its business model is attractive to institutional investors and VC firms if it can successfully get E10 into the right hands. Electronium can become a powerful fintech company. Um, it mentions Africa and South America. Here we are talking about mobile OS app development and African smartphones. So very relevant information. And I'll actually drop that into the chat.
Um, if you're interested in ETN, definitely look up ETN as is just a big marketing scam. That information has been put out there, or people have actually put that out there in terms of skeptics. And there are a lack of developers, and the reason why they've moved so slow to actually make improvements, and why their coin has actually dropped, or the desire for the coin has actually dropped quite a bit. If you're looking at buying ETN right now, it's at 0.007299 USD, and say like if you wanted to say buy like $30 worth, you can get like a lot, right? So uh, we're not giving investment advice, but the biggest thing, the reason why I say all that is because ETN, even when I got into it, I've lost quite a bit. And I still somewhat believe in the coin and what it can actually do in the long term. But the market sentiment for ETN is down, and people are starting to point out issues and problems with ETN as a software development or uh, a cryptocurrency, and it being software. So
Grizzly, you borked out there.
I did. Uh, well, I guess to summarize, if you're looking into ETN, um, just understand that it came from a fairly high place. It was strongly hyped when it first came out, but it's there's been cracks or flaws shown, and there's quite a bit of skepticism out there. Although the strides that it made, I think it was December 27th, where it said that it passed AML, I think. So that's fairly recent. But things that you definitely want to look at before you actually get into ETN if you are interested in it. Hopefully the technology bears out and bears some fruit, but ETN may not be the vehicle for that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of features in ETN, or a lot of ideas that made ETN what it is. In theory, that can actually be applied in other areas outside of ETN,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like ETN, if anything, sounds more or less like what Facebook is trying to do. And I think the biggest power of ETN, and that's more sustainable. And the only reason you would actually make along any type of like you would get into ETN, I'll put it that way, is because of the fact that you're doing mobile mining and everyone has cell phones and more people are going to have cell phones. So if I can start mining coins using my cell phone, that's more sustainable for any type of blockchain or to process all the transactions on a blockchain. Even if it's a small amount of transactions, you're going for the quantity with the amount of people that are coming online with your, say, not your feature phones, but your more robust and uh, more performant phones.
Hmm.
So that's a big thing right there. And then, the slow processing power. You just got to charge your battery. You can actually start doing ETN mining and transactions while you're sleeping. Only have it being done while you're charging, you know,
Or idle.
or idle, right? And then even that is um is cut down because if you receive a phone call or whatever, it starts to take a back seat. You can actually have, in a sense, processor based QoS or quality of service. So it's like things like that, ETN makes sense. Although, sadly, it's been shown as, or it's being uh, criticized right now as a big marketing ploy.
Hmm. Yeah, I think what I'll do right now is that we'll close it out. I don't see any activity in the chat, and I think we've covered just about every area. So just to recap, feature phones will be the new dominant player in these emerging markets such as Africa and South America, as well as Central Asia. Um, Digital services for these feature phones as well as dumb phones as well. Dumb phones still have usability um, in these markets. Um, and then you also take into consideration the languages that you need to understand before you get into Android development as well as other feature phone development. Um, JavaScript, HTML5, Go as a language, C, C++, and understanding of Java. So understanding these 6 areas will actually be beneficial to you. Um, Turnkey smartphone kits or smartphone platforms is actually a thing now. So you can, if we had enough IT people, technology people, people who can code to cook up a ROM, you can actually create a very competitive platform with very little money. You don't have to have a $1,000 iPhone with your face unlock and anything like that. You could actually do a lot with a $65 phone if if uh, uh, um, if need be. Um, I think that this is a growing area And I also think that cloud computing comes into play with this as well as as infrastructure. And then the other piece of infrastructure would be 3G, 4G, 5G. I think, although I think 3G will be phased out after 2022, I still think that 4G and 5G still matter. Wi-Fi still matters, and your charging bases matter as well. You need portable grids because Africa does not have a stable grid. So, like we saw in the video, on the first item on the docket, points to that you have these kiosks with these flip up solar panels that actually provide energy to charge your phone. So these are areas of go ahead.
Oh, one thing I did want to point out that Ronald Cherry had said in the chat earlier, and I wanted to say this and just kept on forgetting. You can have a mobile app where you pre-fill your voting choices, and the only way to vote is to go to the location and scan a QR code or an NFC device to send. And that's kind of like adding to what you're talking about, Mike, or adding to the overall theme of this chat is the power that we have in a lot of these phones that are coming out now that can be used in more ways than just payments. You can do your tap to pay and so on and so forth, and then that can actually go into other areas of our lives, and whether it be voting or just identification purposes. Now you can have the Geico app on your phone, and if the cop accepts it or not, that can be your proof of insurance.
Supreme, do you have anything you want to add to this before we close out?
Nope.
Okay, with that being said, we will hang it up for tonight. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back on Monday with Space and Technology, episode 122, and we are out.